Podcast studios. The
world headquarters.
Upper headquarters.
Luxury suite.
Looks good from your perspective, Mr. Camera Guy, but from ours, it's really not so good.
There's still a toilet over there.
There's a toilet over there.
Toilet right behind me.
We got a toilet over there. We
a
got
bag of
AC
Which
insulation.
is a nice backup plan, just in case things go south here.
if things go
Or
south,
you need
I'm
a
out
quick
here.
exit. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, you can't see behind us, but there's like the history of Christ Church all along the walls.
It's all the stuff
Here.
we're not willing to
Piles
part
and
with
piles.
you.
Yeah.
But you never know when you're going to need it.
If folks would like to come and
That
be a
is
part
true.
of our studio audience,
We got some projectors in here. I think from like the late '90s.
never
Hey,
throw
man,
anything
those
away.
are
You never know.
Those
Yep.
are 480p. Those are high quality.
I'm actually grabbing some lights that have been up there for years today.
Like
to
Christmas
take back.
lights?
No, they're like hanging lights. We're going to utilize them
Chandeliers.
in the cafe.
Oh.
It was back whenever we had the junior high room. That was,
They've been there so
yeah.
long, they're back in style.
Yep.
Sweet.
That's why we're keeping all this.
Good stuff. All right. Well, if you'd like to join us in the studio audience and see all the wonders of we're speaking of, you'd be welcome to join us. Yeah.
I've got one seat for you.
That's all the room.
That's
Hey,
all we
let's
have.
serious business here. If you would like to sponsor the teaching team, we've taken some pretty amazing journeys. We went to Israel together. We went to Turkey, looked at the 7 churches of the book of Revelation. And we are planning a tour that will cover chapters 16, 17, and 18 in the book of Acts, the second and third missionary journeys of primarily the Apostle Paul. That's Greece, if you're not familiar with that. We're going to go look at cities of Philippi and Thessalonica, Corinth and Athens and Tria, Delphi, Berea, and Apollonia. I think there's a couple more, but we'd love to have sponsors.
Yeah, we could, maybe even give a shout out and put a little sticker on,
Yeah.
Somebody's face
Sponsorship tags on
Yeah.
our shirts.
We
yeah.
could look like NASCAR drivers.
Yeah.
Yes, be
I'm
careful
okay with
what
that.
we promise there. Right?
Put it on the rental vehicle.
on it. That won't draw attention.
People all over Greece will know all about you.
We discussed this through Messenger, but one of the issues is like the last time we went, we all wore a matching shirt, right? The long sleeve, zip up, nice logo. We looked pretty slick, professional.
That's all the time, but even more so now. Yeah.
But it was also like, of course, we were traveling in the midst of COVID when we were going to places with, that should have 10,000 visitors and there'd be 100. So that also makes you stick out a little bit when you roll up in our limos and jump out with our matching uniforms and cameras. But it drew a lot of attention to us. So I was kind of thinking maybe we should not match. We
Yeah.
should be like tourists, like
Yeah.
I was
just
wondering
normal
if-
I take a general stand in most of my life not to match other men, so I'm okay with that. But
I kind of liked it.
You know,
it was
whatever.
simple. It was like black pullover.
It's the same
it
thing
was
every day.
simple.
I like
that was
that.
nice.
I didn't have to think about
no
what clothes I was
choosing
wearing.
clothes.
I'm not
yeah.
wearing-
Oh, wait a
Black
minute.
pullover
You don't
in
think about
Greece.
what you're wearing anyway.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, when is
It's like he
511
worries about his
Tactical having
wardrobe.
511 Tactical having
I
their
got, like,
semi-annual sale.
4 polos and 4 t-shirts.
That's all I need. I'm trying to
2 pairs
convince
of
my
pants.
wife
38 pockets.
that's what I need. I need like 4 polos, maybe a couple long sleeve shirts, and some plain tees.
You've
for
got a
Greece.
nice jersey on. What's the story with that?
Yeah, actually, this was a requirement of me for a funeral I did. So they asked if I would wear a Cardinals jersey to preach in, so
And they paid for it, you said.
I did. Yeah, so
That's pretty nice.
pretty good deal.
Good plan.
Yeah.
We're 10 minutes in. I've talked about nothing
We
important.
talk about nothing, but again, if you'd like to sponsor us on the journey to Greece,
There we
something
go.
really
There we go.
we need
We'll drop that Venmo link in the comments.
we need a few $1,000. So
Or just a couple bitcoins.
or we take $1.
like
So,
half
yeah.
of one today.
Hey, let's Easter week. Let's jump to the upper room, the story. We were all fortunate enough to be able to go there to see it, to experience that. I think Andrew recorded a video there with a couple hundred people crammed in a room with us. So we've been to the location, upper room. You read through the text, John 15, 16, 17, 18. And then we took that journey down across the Kidron Valley to the Garden of Gethsemane, prayed in the garden there. So let's reflect on some of that and the Easter story and what that means?
Yes. So one of the things Matt sent us last week was the Easter week from the Gospel Coalition.
I've loved that.
Yeah, so I've been going through that this week. It's been really helpful, and then I've been posting it to the Life Group Leader page.
Maybe explain what that is, because maybe folks don't know. It's just a simple reading plan.
Yeah, so each day it highlights where the scripture's found, what's going on. So like today is Matthew 26, 17 through 75, Mark 14, 12 through 72, Luke 22, 7 through 71, John 13, 1 through 18, 27.
And we're recording this on Thursday,
Yeah.
and it would be what happened in the life last week.
Yep. So
on Thursday.
On that Thursday leading up to the crucifixion. And so, yeah, there's just a little, like brief 2-3 paragraphs of what's going on there, give you some context, and walks you through, what that day kind of held. So it's been really beneficial just to wrap your mind around what's coming and what's going on.
Is there anything in there on Thursday that happens prior to the evening that we know of?
Well, they secure the upper room, so that's a big part of it, because a lot of times we don't give a lot of credit for that. But think about going into Jerusalem, right? And you're looking for this room that, Jesus tells you to go secure and make all these preparations. And though the Passover meal was something they celebrated and was anticipated, there's a lot of uncertainty in just how this is all going to work out, what it's going to look like. Jesus is, told him he's going to go and die, and they're trying to figure out what this looks like. And so there's a lot of faith and uncertainty leading up. And this is kind of the crescendo, like anticipation, anxiety moment of what's going to actually happen. What, is he going to be the domineering, conquering king that's going to overthrow the Romans, and this is going to be our first meal as, new warriors, or is it what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they've seen indication from the early parts of the week that, hey, this could be culminating in the direction they want it to go with, the triumphal entry, the turning over the tables on Monday. Could be, right? And lots of anticipation. I was thinking about from the perspective of Jerusalem, not very big at that time. Historians say as many as 1 million pilgrims would travel there to celebrate the Passover. So the city was just jammed with folks gathered all over the valley, everywhere. Just the ability to find a room large enough to manage this process, that's a God thing. I mean, God's working through that, and Jesus kind of arranges that divinely. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
Other than they go and talk to the guy, and because it's like looking for a wedding reception venue in Effingham in June. It's just they don't exist, right? And so to have that room, it's just this whole thing is so orchestrated by God to bring about what he his salvation of humanity, but he just knows the whole process.
And so, yeah, they have that meal, which we've done the Seder meal here a couple times. We've done it in groups. That's not a simple, like, fast food meal.
No.
It's a process, and it's an entire evening of, celebration. And so...
You got to cook a lamb.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal. And there's lots of preparations that go into that. And yeah, it's interesting. And then Jesus extends even that time by doing the foot washing. That's where he washes his disciples' feet. Mm-hmm. And Peter says, no, I'm the one I should be washing your feet. And Jesus, no, I need, you have to let me do this. And he says, wash all of me then. Peter just...
I just like Peter.
Yeah.
It's like he just expresses what a lot of us feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And maybe the rest of them are thinking it as well, and he's the guy that just says it. Find yourself in Peter. It's like, I see who you are, but if you're going to do this, let's go all in.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
All in.
Do you think that would have been because that would have been very different from what other rabbis or anything would have done. Like, that's not even on the table. Do you think it caught them off guard? Like, what do you think they were experiencing when Jesus does this?
I don't know, a couple of years that they have been with Jesus, you would think you would get to the point where you would say, nothing is going to surprise me today. But I think this surprises them.
Yeah.
In part because it's such a contrast to what seems to be building. And they're having these discussions on the side where God can't hear, right? on the side about who's going to be in positions of power and authority. So you can sense this is where they feel like it's going to go, not washing feet, not washing feet at all.
Yeah. Well, just to that point, you even go to in Acts right before the ascension. That's still their question. Are you going to restore the kingdom of Israel now? And so that's power and authority has been on the forefront of their minds from the very beginning of their time following Jesus.
For me, we try to put ourselves in this story and feel it and experience it. Jeff, you said in your message, if you could go back to one place in history, this would be a place you'd like to just experience.
Yeah, time travel. We could get in DeLorean and go just anywhere, just to go sit in this room with Jesus and watch.
And it makes me wonder, I don't know the answer to this, and the Bible doesn't give us the answer, so we can't come to an answer. But it's like, have the rest of the 11 already been approached by the religious leaders, the Pharisees, to sell Jesus out? Do you know what I mean? Is that happening? We don't know. They chose Judas. He's going to portray Jesus here in a little bit. He's the only one that's not from Galilee. I think that's an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. But there's all that at play too. They're feeling the tension of the religious leaders as well. And it's, as you said, it's culminating into this big final supper.
The part that just kind of blows my mind in the story, when I try to picture, myself in that room, it's like, and I can't remember who's on the right and who's on the left, but it seems to be John, the apostle, is on one side, who's going to take care of his mother Mary, who's going to be probably as close as anybody to staying with him all the way to the end. And on the other side is Judas. Right? So if I'm sitting there, and I'm so far from being Jesus, but if I'm sitting there as Jesus in that moment, and I've just washed everybody's feet, and I know the cross is coming, I know what's transpired with the guy sitting beside me. I mean, how are you going to treat him?
Yeah.
You're not going to be warm and welcoming, and you're washing the guy's feet who has already taken silver to betray you and send you to a cross.
Yep.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because if I knew you had sent a letter to, have me set up, I keep looking at you because you're on the left. I feel like it's the guy on the left. I don't know, because the Cardinal jerseys I like, but
you can trust me.
I mean, if I felt like you, and I knew, Jesus knew, he didn't feel like, he knew, you had already betrayed him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's still going to die for you. And then I'm blown away when, we'll jump ahead later to the evening at this moment, but when Judas shows up in the garden and Jesus is praying and he's in anguish over what's about to happen, and not just the pain of the cross, I don't think, but the anguish of taking upon the sin of the world. Mm-hmm. And his first words to friend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The anguish of being separated from the Father. You know what I mean? Scholars say that it's in that moment that God would turn his back on his son.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
You don't think so?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have jumped that in there. Maybe we should discuss this.
No, yeah. I want to know why.
You want to? Well, I think it's Psalm 22 is what he's quoting. There's two veins of thought there. This is a moment that God can't look upon sin and see Jesus, and so he turns his back on him. My God, why have you forsaken me? Mm-hmm. When Jesus cries that. The view I learned years ago in college was from Albert McGee. He thought that Jesus was actually quoting from Psalm 22, which begins, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's kind of like when we quote a familiar thought.
Gotcha.
And then we don't finish it because we know people know the conclusion. The rest of the psalm talks about crucifixion and the fact that God is present with him in the midst of it. It's
I've
actually
never heard
just the opposite thought.
Mm-hmm.
But why did we go down that trail?
I don't know.
But I did have a thought, if we back up 2 steps, about Judas. Because there's 2 lines of thinking about Judas as well. One is that he sold him out. But there's another line of thought that says he actually believed Jesus was the conquering king, and he was trying to expedite the timeline because Jesus was moving too slow. And he's like, I know this dude is the guy.
Pushing
and so,
Jesus' button. Like,
yeah.
when they come to arrest him, he's going to annihilate them.
Yep. So, like, bring it, Jesus. Like, I know you can do it. And then that's why.
If that was true, when they approached Jesus in the garden and the detachment, which is 600 soldiers, when the detachment of soldiers, remember it tells us that they fall to the ground. I don't remember which gospel says that, but they fall to the ground. Judas is probably like, yeah, here we go.
But
do you really think that's what?
The reasoning there is because he goes out and hangs himself because he's like, oh my goodness, like, that didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen. I don't know. It's an interesting thought because, you know, Judas is there and he's called friend, but I just think of how oftentimes we may misrepresent Jesus, or we don't view him the way he truly is, or we take an aspect of him and we try to twist it or whatever, and we don't understand what he's trying to do sometimes because of our own selfish, desires or perspective or motivation. I don't know.
So I think a question that I've gotten a lot that I don't really know how to answer is, so was Judas saved then?
Oh, that's a good question.
The apostles don't think so.
Right.
Right.
Which
Based
leads
on their
me,
reading.
Yeah.
that leads me to think that their perspective on Judas was that he was denying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is
So-
one of them says he's gone to the place where he
Yeah. Deserves.
Yeah.
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 But, that
So-
I'm not arguing for any position here.
Right.
I'm just saying that's also written post-event, and they're like, yeah, because they're pretty confident in who Jesus is as well, but they don't get it either. Peter denies him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, the question is, Judas does his betrayal one way or the other, but Peter denies him as well. And so Peter, and we've talked about this, how you respond to your sin determines the outcome, and determines your path that you take. Judas's was, sorrow and, oh, I messed up. There's nothing worth living for. Peter comes to a point of going, I messed up. Jesus is the one who saves me.
Yeah.
And runs to Jesus. So, like, literally jumps in the water to go meet Jesus on the reinstatement. So, yeah, I don't know.
So,
Interesting contrast.
but here's an interesting thing with Judas, like verse 3 of Matthew 27. When Judas who had betrayed him saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse, returned the silver coins to the chief priests and the elders, and said, I have sinned. I have betrayed innocent blood. Later on it says, they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field, There's such a difference there with like the remorse and the repentance.
Yeah.
Peter weeps bitterly, and he just repents, but he doesn't take that step to kill himself, so he's able to be reinstated. But what's the future with Judas if he doesn't take that direction?
I think it comes down to who you believe Jesus is. And I think his view of Jesus changed, that he wasn't really the Messiah. That would be my take. He's not who he says he is. And that's why there's no hope. Because I've been
That
following
would make
this
sense
guy.
with the anti-Roman view.
Yes, but he says, I have betrayed innocent blood. That's still not a claim that he understands he's the Messiah.
Right.
It could just be, I led a man to death that didn't deserve to die. I don't know. It's one of those philosophical questions that you can't really answer.
Yep.
So from that perspective, it feels better to believe that Judas was just trying to usher in the end, right? Not the end of Jesus, but the end of this Roman rule thing.
It leads you to be somewhat sympathetic to Judas, but I don't know if that's the right response.
No, I don't think
it's
it
like,
is.
man, he's trying to move this along, but gosh,
which is kind of arrogant.
right? Yeah.
It's self-serving.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
going like,
Okay, never mind. He was a jerk.
I want to be in a place of power, and this
Yeah.
dude, he's doing all these things.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be the one that kicks the Romans out, and I'm going to be on his team.
So the exchange of silver, maybe that complicates the issue in the heart of Judas as well. So it's like he didn't just say, let me show you where he's at. He got paid to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe that makes us go, and I know that, is it John that says the reason Judas it's John chapter 12 at Lazarus' house when Mary pours the perfume on the feet of Jesus and wipes them with her hair. He says, we could have fed the poor. And John says, yeah, he's lying.
Yeah.
He's just telling us that because he wanted to, he's pulling money out as we go, and he would have kept some of that for himself.
That's interesting, too, because Jesus knows that all along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But does he care? He owns
Right.
he owns everything anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't need the support. But
No matter what, however we view this, Judas has a heart problem that's not fixed.
Yeah.
Peter has a heart problem that Jesus fixed.
Yep.
Because of belief in who Jesus was and a perspective that Peter is able to gain by a relationship with Jesus. And then I think there's a difference there because Judas and Peter have two different types of relationships. One's a personal, Lord, if you're going to wash my feet, wash all of me.
Yep.
Like, I'm in, like what you were saying. And Judas is more like, let's see what happens here. Like, even through the whole thing, stealing money out of the money bag, it's using Jesus for
Judas
his
is
own
like,
gain.
Yeah.
oh, you missed a spot by my big toe.
Right. Yeah. And, man, we could be really guilty of that too, using Jesus versus walking with Jesus.
Oh, especially when, I was doing the apologetics class and did the health and, I was supposed to do the health and wealth gospel. I didn't get there, I ran out of time. But that whole philosophy that's so prevalent in our culture, like using Jesus to have a better life, that's Judas.
Yep.
Right? And so when it's really on the line, who is Jesus? What is Jesus to us? Is he just a benefit to us? Is he something to get us what we want, what we can gain? More health, more wealth, more riches? Or is he Jesus, like the Son of the living God that came and died, and that's more than enough?
I think John Piper uses this analogy. He asked the question, is Jesus useful to you or is he precious? Because whatever's useful to you is good for the moment and then is discarded once its usefulness is used up or put away and brought back out when you need it again. Or if he's precious, it's something that you treasure. It's something that you value above anything else. And so that's kind of the difference in Peter versus Judas. Judas clearly viewed Jesus as useful to him, but Peter, even though he fell, he clearly views Jesus as precious. So,
And the really cool, we're skipping ahead in the story I'm going to, and you guys can tell me not to if you want, but
I'm not going to correct you again today.
Well, that's fine.
I feel bad about the last time.
But what's
Just repent. You'll be okay.
what's crazy to me is, Jesus is arrested. He goes
Oh, whoa.
to Caiaphas'
We're
house.
like
Are we
in
gonna-
the middle of the night now.
Okay.
It's Friday.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
He's arrested. We go to Caiaphas' house, and when Jeff and I were there, we're sitting there, and I think Ben and Jeff did a father-son video there. That we made. It was
great.
That was awkward.
We really bonded.
You guys were
In
wearing the
were we
same-
wearing matching shirts?
Yeah.
Gosh, see, that's where that started.
the shirt.
It's
I'll
along
never
that
do this
old
again.
Roman road that Jesus actually walked up, and we were trying to do a series. Somebody who sits at this table passed a lot of gas right there.
And it was not the two people doing the video, I'll tell you that much. My goodness.
A lot of bread.
Bread is bad. But anyway,
We're sitting there, and we're watching you guys do this video, and what you see in that place is, it's likely it's somewhere there was a fire there, right?
Yeah.
Peter denies Jesus 3 times in that moment. But if you're standing there on those steps, you look to your left and you see the southern steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so you immediately go to Acts 2 and you see Peter preaching the gospel message and thousands of respond, and he can see that location physically. That's where I denied Jesus, but this is where Jesus is using me.
Yep.
It's
when
incredible.
you pointed that out, I believe it was you. That's the first time I'd ever made that connection. 600 yards probably apart.
Yeah, not far.
So he's preaching that you killed Christ, and right there he can see.
Yeah.
He can see where he said, I don't know him.
Yeah. And that goes back to that relationship. You know what I mean?
That
Powerful.
moment, see, there's the difference. Another difference in Judas and Peter. Peter stayed there, right? And in that moment when they make eye contact, the text tells us Jesus and he made eye contact. That just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
But that brokenness leads to his healing. Judas stays in his sin, and he never goes back to Jesus. I think that's a key for us. Is we have to reach the point where we look in the eyes of Jesus and we're broken over our sin.
Yep.
You know, where we feel our guilt and our responsibility that leads to what happened, that the Son of God dies in our place. That focus to come to Jesus guilty, broken, that's where you find healing. Otherwise you're stuck in your guilt.
One of the things that's like overwhelming about Caiaphas's house in that location is the pit.
Yeah.
We have no idea, you know what I mean, if Jesus was actually held there. But I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Like, anybody want to explain what that was like?
There's like a hole in the floor where they would have lowered prisoners to hold them for a short time. This is at the house of Annas, and he's being tried there before Caiaphas, and that's his father-in-law's house.
Yeah.
And it's just a pit, basically. And you go down in there,
Mm-hmm.
it's like Jesus might have been like retained right here, already beaten, and that, oh man, that place just gives me.
There's like a picture, and on the picture there's Jesus. Yeah. There's a lot of things that they say happened we don't know. But it's a picture of a rope like around his chest and around over his arms, and it's literally a picture of what it would have been like if he was lowered into that pit where he hung and waited till morning.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, like, okay, so Jesus is God. They lower him down thinking like a cave's going to hold him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is divinely appointed by God all the way through.
Voluntarily submitting.
Yeah. Because, like, that little cave, I mean, it's a big cave thing. You know what I'm saying?
How
With a
deep
hole,
do you think
but,
it was?
I don't know, 15 feet?
Okay, I couldn't remember.
But, like, that ain't nothing.
Yeah.
You know? And we see that he breaks death, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's just, I think it's interesting when we think about this. And, I don't know, just the power that is laid down to submit to God's will in order for salvation of the world. It's amazing.
And it was available to Mr. Judas,
Yeah.
and it's available to us. That's crazy.
Yep.
Jeff, you shot a video on the what side of the wall was that?
Top. Where?
I forget where we were. Was it stone pavement? They just
Oh yeah, on the western side of the wall. So you go from Annis's house. It depends on which route. Like the historical Via Dolorosa is a 13th century thing. Probably not the accurate. Everything you watch on YouTube is going to tell you that they went down that.
It takes you right by the shops conveniently.
Yeah, it's
does.
interesting.
The Holy Baby.
Antonio's fortress and all that stuff. But Pilate had a palace on the western wall, and the early history, most of the people thought that's the pathway, and it makes sense because it's a straight line to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the crucifixion location. Right there's a stone pavement that was discovered recently, like within the last 20 years, and that's the place where Pilate interacts with Jesus, washes his hands, finally says you can have Barabbas, and the people cry for crucifixion of Christ, and that place just chills me to go there. Because I know most, I don't know, but very likely had we been in the crowd, we'd have been part of the mob. The same mob that said this is the Messiah is now saying crucify this man.
And you think about, because that's really significant, just the sheer brutality of crucifixion. I mean, if you get into the details,
it's gory.
I don't know anything else that would be worse. and yet that was a Roman instrument to keep whoever they were over. I mean, it didn't just have to be Jews, but in this context, specifically the Jewish people, under their authority. And they would do it at eye level, so it's like billboards almost advertising, hey, this is what happens when you step out of line and try to subvert the Roman authority. And that's what they chose. You know, it's wow.
Jesus was taken in there from that stone pavement and flogged, which the rate of death from that is high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, we get to this is God we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Who calmed storms and raised the dead, who spoke into existence all of creation, being allowed to they're flogging him. So this morning I got my second injection of some medicine I'm getting. My wife's giving me shots
Oh.
in the rump. And and I hate it. I get sweaty and I hate needles. I get sick at my stomach. You know, it's one little bitty. She kind of likes it. I'll get it. For the first day, she asks me how deep the needle's, like, that long. She says, "Do I push it all the way in?" I said, "Push." No. So she's giving.
Stop when you hit bone.
No kidding. But
Then send it.
So she sticks the needle in, and it does hurt for just a moment, barely, and then it's a painkiller.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to make the brain fog go away. I read in that this is bad.
It's a long way to travel. But.
I'm a butthead.
Oh my!
I like where this is going.
This ties in perfectly to the conversation.
It's an illustration that's gone way too far.
I'm like waiting for comeback.
Yeah, here we go.
It's used for dementia patients, so that gives you an idea. I forgot what I was talking about. No, it's just one little bitty pinprick, and I don't want to lay down and submit to that. Right? But Jesus, he takes all this.
Yeah.
He's flogged. They jab the crown upon him there and mock him. And then he has to carry the beam of his cross.
Yeah.
Another probably quarter of a mile.
Well, and I think one of the things with the crucifixion that just this week I started thinking about was we've kind of cartoonized it to where we've removed the emotion and the authenticity of it. Like, this is real, excruciating pain. In fact, that's the word excruciating comes from the Latin phrase "from the cross." Mm-hmm. That's where we get that word. And so it just tells you how crazy this was. But Jesus is flogged, whips with bone and metal and jagged pieces tied in, rips chunks of flesh out. That's what it's designed to do. And then they slap probably 300-pound crossbeam on him.
To drag.
It's rubbing his back the whole way.
It's not smooth.
No, and the Romans would have, obviously they nailed him to the cross, 5 to 7 inch nails right in the nerve center, so you feel everything.
I went in the Israeli museum there. You guys didn't get to go there, but in the Israeli museum they've got proof of crucifixion as a form of punishment, which used to be questioned. People used to question that even existed, but there's a heel bone that they have uncovered or found. The bone, your heel bone it's pretty big, right? It's a pretty solid bone.
So I got a picture of it.
They've got a spike
Yeah.
Yeah.
driven right through your heel bone.
Yep. Well, and they would invent just different ways to make something that was already heinous even worse. They would sometimes attach a seat to the cross so that you didn't die of asphyxiation quicker.
Yeah, it wasn't for mercy. It's for extending
No, it was for
punishment.
extending the punishment. And some commentator, scholar I was reading the other day said that if they wanted to, they could extend that the death process 9 to 10 days. Can you imagine? And so,
Wow.
and this is what he's going through. And so I think it's important for us to understand the reality of it, because we've separated ourselves from it and kind of just assumed or taken this posture that it's not real pain. We can't imagine.
So by prophecy, Jesus' bones would not be broken. And that's important. I mean, everything that's prophesied about him comes to be true in his life. And it would have been, they went to break his bones. Oh, yeah. That's it.
That's the
place.
picture.
It's a heel bone with a...
Wow.
You seen that before?
Mm-hmm.
Can you zoom in?
Wow.
If they had broken his bones, that would have, not fulfilled prophecy. So they come to do that he would die before Passover, and he's already dead. And the proof of that is when they jabbed the spear into his chest cavity, and water and blood flows out. Actually, when I was talking about this at the apologetics class, there was a physician present. He explained, that separation process of the platelets and the serum, I think he called it, the water. When that water flows out, that without doubt, Jesus is dead.
Wow.
But 6 hours is forever to endure that.
Yeah.
All the while, here's the deal. You said it, and it's right. Like he says to Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane, I could stop this if I wanted to. You don't need to draw your sword. I've got 10,000 times 10,000 angels. We could stop this if we wanted to, but this has to happen to fulfill the will of the Father. And I've got to do this. Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then came Sunday.
And I think that's where we hang our hat, man.
Yep.
Yep.
Saturday would have been, we don't talk about Saturday very often. Saturday would have been tough. Saturday is a microcosm of the reality of our life today, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's a picture of everything's done, but we're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
We have the hope. We know the restoration that will be perfection. Eternity is there. It's ready. Everything's been done, but we're waiting. That's a tough place to be. Saturday was hard,
Yeah.
Yep.
but Sunday. That's pretty good discussion today. Got a little more intense than we thought we
Especially
might.
with the shot in the butt. I could barely handle that one.
Makes me my palms are sweating just talking about it. I hate needles. I think, what a wimp I am.
If you know how to use this thing, let us know.
Or if you want us to
I
come
think you
try
could
it on
actually-
your property,
That's an old
come try it.
that's an old Indian blow dart gun, I think, used to shoot the medicine into.
The wing bone yummer. Hey, one last time, let me say, if you want to sponsor this crew going to Greece,
Hey.
send the money. Thanks for joining us on the ReThink Podcast.